All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. I am George Castro, and this is part of the Ubuntu Online Summit. And we're going to do Getting Started Writing Juju Charms. It's going to be a 2-hour block of charm schools to get everyone spun up on how they can start writing Juju charms and get that stuff out deployed in clouds. So we are watching IRC. The channel is #ubuntu-uds-devops-1. Say hi if you're in there, so we know you're in there. I'll be monitoring the channel with questions that you may have. Please feel free to ask questions on the spot. We got plenty of time. All right, we're live. Welcome, everybody. Lots of things to cover. I am George Castro, and this is part of the Ubuntu Online Summit. Can you guys? Oh, that's me. And we're going to do. That's so embarrassing. Okay. I was like about to yell at you, and it's like all my fault. Okay, that's fine. That happens in every session. I don't know why. So we're gonna get started. So I think what we're gonna do here is Marco and Matt are here. Introduce yourselves real quick, guys.
Hi, my name's Matt Brujek. I'm a charmer.
Marco Sheppy. I'm also a charmer.
Excellent. Okay, so I think what we're gonna do here is the best way to really learn a charm, I think, is by example. So we've got some charms picked out for you. We have some charms deployed places like HP or AWS, local. We have charms deployed everywhere, and we're gonna show you how to dig through those charms. We're gonna show you how to create a charm from scratch, right? From scratch. Is that what we're doing today?
We're gonna do a charm from scratch today. Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So before we do get started, let me just give you the quick little intro here, and I don't want to spend too much time on this because this is all available on juju.ubuntu.com, getting started. And this session, if you don't know what Juju is, if you don't know how to use Juju, please go back and look on the schedule and look at the getting started videos that we made. So, if you don't know how to deploy or anything like that, or any of the pre-made charms, we've got videos that are precursors to this to get you spun up on how to actually use Juju as a tool. What we're going to concentrate on this session here for these 2 hours is how to leverage using Juju for your own software. So you have a piece of software that you want to deploy to the cloud or to your own OpenStack. You have custom bits that you need to get deployed on your cloud. So this is more about your own custom applications, your own databases, whatever stuff you have at work that is annoying and really complicated for you to deploy. We're going to show you how to charm that up so you can use that with Juju. If you're looking to just consume Juju and all the charms that are available, we are putting all these videos on the Ubuntu site, juju.ubuntu.com/videos. And some of the earlier ones there are probably more for you. Once you figure out how to use Juju and you're like, wow, this is really great, now I want to use this for my own application, my own database, that's when you are ready to start writing your first Juju charm, which is what we're getting here today. So first top level, I know our documentation, Marco, we say before you get started, have a plan. So what are you going to show us here as far as having a plan, and then we'll go over the structure of a charm, and then we'll go knee-deep into each of the hooks and whatnot. So
so we have a plan. Essentially what we'll be doing today is we'll be talking through the various tools that exist that you can use to create charms with, how those all are laid out and installed. Then we'll be walking through the structure of a charm so you can get familiar with what you're looking at, what files you need to edit, and then we'll kind of dive into writing a charm from scratch so you can kind of see the process, where the hook goes as you would do a normal install, how that translates into a charming structure. And we'll be fielding anyone's questions along the way, so if you have any questions, feel free to ask in the IRC room. That's the plan.
Okay. So you've got your terminal ready to go?
Yes, I do.
Show me.
Although my internet browser currently says I'm offline, so I don't know if you guys can still see me or not.
We can see you.
Marco, I can see you. I can't see your terminal.
Right. Let me just switch over my name servers to something other than my ISPs. Hey, my internet works again. Okay, cool. Switching over to terminal.
There we go. Okay. Oh,
So you guys see that okay?
Yep.
there you go. Yep.
Awesome. So the very first thing I did is I just created a directory called charms. The way you do when you're working on local charms, when you're branching charms, deploying stuff from a local repository, you need to create a directory for each series that you want to run your charms in. So currently, most people are running charms from either Precise or Trusty. So for today, I'm going to create a Precise and a Trusty directory. Most of the charms I'm going to write them in Trusty because that's the new LTS for Ubuntu. But there are other charms that are currently in Precise that if I want to look at them or explore them, I could put them in the Precise directory and be able to deploy them locally. So if we just look, we just have a Precise and Trusty directory. This is what we call our Juju repository. So whenever you see the Juju repository referenced in the command line help, it's referring to this directory where you have a collection of directories that represent the series of the platform you wish to deploy to. So this is our Juju repository is ~charms. So I'm going to go into Trusty. We've created a series of tools to help you author charms and to help manage charms in general. They're aptly called charm tools. You can install them from ppa:/juju/stable. So to add that, you would type sudo add apt repository ppa:/juju/stable. This is also in the docs for charm tools. Once you've added your repository and you've run an apt-get update, you'll be able to apt-get install charm tools. Wow, taking a while.
And that's with a dash. That's charm-tools, by the way.
Correct. Yeah, it's cool how you guys can see me, but I actually am not able to connect to the internet.
That's strange. You don't have a shuttle running or anything like that, do you?
No, I have nothing special running. It's my DNS resolution. I have no DNS resolution right now. Give me 2 seconds to attempt to repair this.
It happens on the internet.
For those of us following along in the IRC channel, I dropped in the links to the Getting Started and the Charm Tools URLs. If there's anything in the docs that you guys want updated, just let us know in #Juju on Freenode, or create a bug, or contribute the documents yourself. You can do that online, and we have a GitHub documentation process that we have documented. Let me grab that link for you too. So you can contribute to the docs as well as community members. So if you find something that you want that's not clear, you can always update that yourselves, and one of us will authorize that. That'd be great.
So you guys can still see me, right?
Yep.
All right. I have resolved internet access. Not sure what it did, but it works now.
Good job.
Great.
Yay, internet. So what you want to do is when you've installed Charm Tools, make sure you have at least Charm Tools version 1.2.10. You can do this by typing charm version. If this gives you an error or gives you a version less than this, you want to make sure you have the PPA added, that you've run the apt-get update, and that you have installed the latest version. We have a lot of cool features that have landed in the tools in 1.2.10, and lots of cool stuff coming in the near future, so keep an eye out for that. So once you have the charm tools command installed, you'll have a charm command, as we just saw here, and you'll want to run charm create. What this does is it gives you a boilerplate for a charm template that allows you to get past all the crap. It gives you just a real good leaping off point for writing a charm. So in this case, I'm going to run charm create, and for the sake of this example, I'm just going to call this foobar. We'll run this again when we actually go through our create a charm from scratch, see how much Marco can be done in 1 hour sprint. So I'm going to run this. It's going to give you a little bit of output. It's going to tell you that it's loading a template. Tells you that it's going to be creating a charm in the foobar directory. And then it's going to attempt to see if it can find a package named foobar in the app repository. And if it can't, it'll give you an empty charm. And if it can, it'll try to pre-fill some of those details for you. So for instance, we could do something like this. MySQL server. We already have a MySQL charm, but if we created this, it would look to see that it had MySQL stuff in the cache, and it will create a charm template for you. But regardless, what we have now is a foobar directory. Get rid of this MySQL server one. And inside foobar directory, we have the following. So this is essentially what you need in order to create a charm. This is what it looks like. It's a directory that contains a bunch of files. The most important being this metadata YAML file. This is the only file that is required to make a charm a charm. Everything else is considered optional from Juju, although some of them are required to be in the charm store. But for everything you need is in this metadata YAML file. I'm going to show you what this file looks like. So if we pop it open, you'll see it has just a bunch of details about this charm. So it has its name, the summary, the maintainer, and the description. I like to call these just human details. They're things that Juju really doesn't care about, but they're good for people to know what's going on. What this charm does in summary, a little more in-depth description of what actually happens behind the scenes with this piece, describing what it'll achieve, what's going on. Think of it about a paragraph length, whereas a summary should be about 50 to 60 characters long, nothing too terribly intense. A category, so we know what kind of category this charm falls in. Whether or not it's a subordinate, we'll touch on that in a minute. And then these sets of information here, which is really the vital, important piece of the charm. And this basically tells the charm, or tells Juju how this charm connects to other charms, and really exemplifies the magic that Juju is, where you can connect these pieces of seemingly unconnected infrastructure to each other and have them just start talking and communicating and working. It's quite awesome. So this is what makes that magic happen. But overall, this file is the only thing that's required for a charm to be a charm. So this is the metadata file. There are quite a few others that exist in a directory. So we'll be back in this metadata YAML file in a due time to go in a little more in depth. But this is where all the sort of, well, I don't want to say metadata, but this is where all the information about the charm exists. Let's go here. The next one of really importance is the readme file. While it's not technically important, it's probably the single most vital piece of information that you can fill out in your charm, other than the actual code that makes it run. This is the stuff that users will see when they try to deploy your charm, when they try to look to see what this service does, how to configure it, how to manage it, all the great things that you're doing, all the awesome stuff that you're encapsulating in this charm should be really outlined in the README file. And the README file is basically going to tell the user exactly what is going on and how to use it. And it's your gateway to sell the user this is a charm that they want to use, a service they want to deploy. So a lot of times people will go over a real brief introduction about the service and the charm, all the configuration options, example values for those configuration options, how the relations work, sample deployments should exist in here, where they can get information about the service, where they can get support about the service, and where they can contact the author of the charm. So there's loads of information that should be placed in this README. We include a boilerplate for the README that kind of outlines what you want to include. This is in Markdown. We have like very fancy Markdown rendering. You can write the README in any real formatting, but we prefer Markdown as it tends to generate nicely. So we have an overview, examples of how to use the charm, how to scale the charm, limitations, various configurations, contact information, and then the upstream project information. But this is really just the guideline. You could add even more details. We're not going to limit you on just these bullet points. The next thing that's of a bit of importance is kind of these two files directly, the config YAML and the hooks. But it's hard to explain really one without explaining the other first. So I'm going to talk a bit about the hooks, and we'll come back to this config YAML. So in the hooks, what we have is just a series of files, and these files represent events that occur in the life cycle of that service. So for instance, The install hook is essentially what is invoked during the installation action of a service. Consequently, the start hook is incurred when you want to start the service. The service is ready to be started. Inferring that stop is the same thing, and then config change is what happens when a user changes configuration of a service. And these relations are what happens when you add relations to a service. So these are really just hooks that are modeled around the events that happen. And you can codify what should happen in each event inside of these hooks. So for instance, in the install hook, you may want to install some packages. You may be downloading the actual source of the tool and compiling on the server. Whereas with the start hook, you may be invoking a simple init script or an upstart script or a systemd script, or maybe doing additional steps that require to start it. All that logic gets encapsulated in these different events, and they're triggered throughout the lifecycle of a service. Which leads me to the next point, where something that we say a lot in the docs and a lot in charm schools and a lot all over when you're writing charms, all hooks must be idempotent. So I'm going to take a brief vacation to talk about idempotency, where there's no guarantee, even with something like the install hook, that your hook will only be called once. In fact, it's almost a certain guarantee that a hook will be called at least once, typically more than once, inside of during a standard deployment. As such, all hooks should guard this idea of idempotency, where when run with the same parameters, produces the same results always. So we'll be going into a bit more about how to do idempotency guarding in hooks when we start writing the charm, but that word is going to be coming around a lot. It just means simply that when a hook is run, it can be run multiple times with the same input, meaning the same parameters, and produce the same results every time. So the last bit of information that exists in this template here is the config YAML. And the config YAML is simply a YAML file that just shows you, that allows you to expose configuration options that a user would want to change. So this is the ability for you to expose configuration for the user so that they can, manipulate the service to their liking. Now, what you expose in here is kind of important. Is you don't want to expose every single option. If you look at services like MySQL or Nginx or Apache or these standard services, they have quite literally hundreds of different configuration options that you can provide and tweak and change. You don't want to do that inside the service config, as most of those are okay as the default. There's no need for a user to ever want to tune them in the lifecycle of that service. Alternatively, they don't have to represent a single one-to-one correlation of this is the exact configuration option name. Let's say that in the foobar service there's a configuration option that's called baz and bar. It says, you don't have to say this is how you set baz and this is how you set bar. You could have what we call opinionated configs, where in order to achieve a certain level or a certain configuration, you would want to say, I want to run this in, let's say, an optimized fashion. The charm could then take that, okay, I'm now running in a tuning level of optimized. I have to change these several configuration options to achieve that result. So these don't have to be literal one-to-ones. They can be very opinionated, very not grounded in actual technical translation of the service itself. They can also be anything you really want to expose to the user that you think the user would want to use. So in this case, these are the three types of options you have. You have strings, you have booleans, you have integers, and then each has a type. In this case, the type of the configuration option, a default value, and then a description. This should be a very brief one-sentence description where you just highlight maybe potential values, like these are the current valid values, X, Y, and Z. And then inside the readme is really where you want to go in-depth description, describing what the configuration option does, what the various values are, what the consequences of those changes are. All that should be embodied in the readme, whereas this should just be a very quick 1 to 2 sentence jab about this is what this will do, here are the values for it, etc. That essentially sums up the structure of a charm. Again, if you have any questions and you're watching this live, feel free to ask us in the RC room. If you're watching this later, you can always ping us in various locations. We'll talk about those at the end of the video. So this is the essential structure of a charm. The last bit of information is these 4 hooks here, these relation name, relation, broken, changed, departed, joined. And in order to demonstrate this, I'm going to make a few changes to this example charm real quickly. So we're going to open up the metadata file. I'm going to change this a little bit. So this is going to become, our foobar charm will provide, let's say, a website. And we'll say that it provides this on the HTTP interface, and we'll talk about interface in a second. And this also requires a bar, and the bar operates on Internet Interface BAS. And there are no peers. So briefly about the peer relations. The peer relation is something that's implicitly created between units. We could talk about that a little more in depth in a second. I want to get past this example first, but that's why there are three. So the relations in general are what I consider a bit of a misnomer. Provides and requires isn't something that would describe that this is only going to be sending data, this is only going to be receiving data. Provides and requires are more endpoints. So this is really endpoint A, and endpoint A can only ever talk to endpoint B, and B can only talk to endpoint A, and vice versa. So this prevents you from saying that a charm that provides this interface and a charm that provides that same interface can never talk to each other. It's both providing. They're both endpoint A's. In reality, whether a charm provides or requires a relation, it can always send and receive information back and forth. So at a fundamental level, what charms do when you create relations is it sets up this protocol for communication. It allows you to allows charms to talk to each other directly. So the way they know how to talk to each other is with this idea of an interface. So the interface is like a protocol, a very loosely written spec that says when you connect on this interface, we will be able to share and speak the same language. So, for instance, HA proxy is a proxying tool, and it requires an HTTP interface. So when you connect charms that provide HTTP to charms that require it, in this case HA proxy, what will happen in the back end is the charm that provides this interface will send over all the details that HA proxy needs, in this case the host name and the port. So the HA proxy knows how to configure its load balancer to be able to load balance to all the units in that service group. The same thing happens when you connect a database relation. When you connect a charm from a service you have to a database charm that you've deployed, the database charm will create a database, it'll create user credentials, and it'll send all that information over to the charm. And we'll talk a bit about that when we start writing the charm itself to see how that works. But you're able to query this relation information and actually send information back to the charms. You can talk back and forth for quite a while until you get all the information that each service needs. So that's a bit about what these interfaces are, and they'll probably make a little more sense as we go and dive into the charm. And we also have a charm school coming up that goes really in depth on what relations are. So what I have here is, let's split this a little bit. So I have in my metadata YAML, I've got two relations have been defined: a website relation and a bar relation. The relation names here are arbitrary. I could call these anything that I want. I can call this, I could have called this foobar for all it matters. You'll want to use brief descriptive names. In this case, I'm providing a website. I require a bar. It makes sense when you can speak about it in English terms. So inside my hooks directory, what I need to do is I can create now these 4 set of hooks per relation I've created. So let me delete these 4 here. I'm going to create a website relation joined, website relation changed, website relation departed, and finally website relation broken. I created this in order because this is the order in which the events occur when you deploy a charm. So when I deploy this foobar charm and I deploy HA proxy and I connect the two together, what happens is both sides receive the event and they both start running through their hooks respectively. So on this side, on the foobar charm side, the first thing it runs is this website relation join. This is essentially saying you have just created a new instance of this relation. Do everything you need to prepare for the handshake. So you wouldn't expect to be able to receive data at this point, but for instance, on database charms, you'll need to create a database and a user credential. Usually that gets done during the relation join hook. Then relation changed will occur whenever there's new data that was sent across the line. So when in a database charm, whenever the database charm sends us the credentials, that will trigger a relation changed hook. So we'll be able to say, okay, relation change was fired. Do we have the credentials we need? If we have them, then go ahead and write the configuration files. And if we don't, just simply wait for the next invocation. So that's what kind of happens during the beginning of the relation, which is relation join. That happens during the life cycle of a relation, every time a new relation is fired. The last two happen to be whenever a relation is being severed between services. So whenever you run Juju remove relation, or whenever you destroy the relation in the Juju GUI, it triggers these events on both ends. The first one is relation departed. Relation departed essentially says it's the opposite of relation join. It's things are about to break up for us. So get all the information you need from me, because very soon we won't actually be able to communicate with each other. And then finally, relation broken means there is no more relation that exists between these two services. Clean up any configuration files you have. So for instance, this may be deleting the config you created for the database settings, or in a database charm, deleting the user you created for that database, and things of that nature. So that's what these 4 events are, and each relation here can have up to these 4 events created. You'll notice when you're looking through existing charms, some charms will only have maybe half of the hooks that we've listed here. Hooks are optional, so if you don't have any code to be putting in them, you can just delete the file. When Juju tries to fire that event, it'll say, okay, the hook doesn't exist, so everything is fine, I'm going to keep on executing and going forward. So there's no need for you to create blank hooks for every single thing, just simply create hooks for the events that you need to actually model with code. And with that, that essentially summarizes the structure of a charm. I don't think there's anything else. The last one would be the icon file. This is something that makes it look really pretty in the store. So if you haven't seen, I'll open that up. You can go to jujucharms.com. This will allow you to kind of browse our charm store. It gives you an environment to play in the GUI. If you notice these charms here, they have these quite spectacular looking icons on the left-hand side. Those are what are defined in the icon.svg file. So by default, we will give you this, which is a very blank template. Already rounded corners, drop shadows, everything you need to make an icon. And we have instructions on our docs on how to actually fill in the product inside of there, how to put your logo, how to change the background color. I'm not very artistic, so I immensely appreciate how simple the docs are. So if you download Inkscape and use Inkscape, you can actually set up your icon in a pretty quick fashion. That's really the last thing that we haven't touched in this file yet. One more thing is you'll want to make sure your hooks are all executable. So we created these new 4 hooks here, but they're not actually executable. So let's just do that. That didn't actually do anything, did it? No, I need the recursive.
Just hooks.star would work. Or hooks.star.
Oh, that's true. Star would have worked as well. So that is a charm. So as you're writing a charm, we provide you with several tools to help you figure out if you're on the right track. They're essentially adapt to linting tools. They do cursory checks to make sure that files that you need are in place, so you don't have anything that would be considered bad or negative. This comes in the form of charm proof. So if I run charm proof right now, I'm inside my foobar directory. Actually, let's just go ahead and let's go back to one window for now. It'll give you back everything it can find that has an error. So, oh, did I not save the file? I didn't save the file. That's problematic. I think this was requires foo. Bar.
So while Marco's fixing that, the charm proof is required when we do a charm review. So if you have any errors in there, we'll need to clean those up before a charm can be submitted to the charm store. And it's just a helpful thing that tells you, you know, you've got some boilerplate stuff left in from charm create, or you didn't make these executable, or you're missing files.
Yes, fantastic. So I'm just going to briefly go over what all of the different icons are. So the very severest is an E. So if you have an E, that essentially means that Juju will not be able to deploy this charm. Any of these things that are marked E indicate that Juju will fail to deploy it. Warnings, or W's, are things that will either be that are not acceptable in the charm store, or that will adversely affect supporting charm tools, such as the Juju GUI or the charm store ingestion part in particular. So if you have any E's or any W's, the charm will immediately not be accepted into the charm store during review. So before you submit your charm for review, run charm proof, and that'll give you the information you need to proceed to clean up your charm. So it's warning me that I still have the example README file, and that I haven't actually ever changed the README file. It's giving me a warning that I have no copyright file, so I need to put a copyright file in here. So let me just put one in here from an existing charm that I wrote.
And the copyright file covers the code in the charm, not the code that you're installing or the code that you're putting in for that you're charming up. It's just for the charm code itself. Right?
Exactly. So the service may not be an open source license, or it may be a different license. You're just copywriting the files in the charm. I use the dep5 format. It's a very straightforward format. It allows you to specify multiple files that have different copyrights. So if you have multiple contributors, they can change the clause here to say, you know, the files they wrote, if they want to copyright it separately or a different license. If it's going to be in the charm store, it needs to be under an approved OSI license. There's a link on our docs that take you to all the approved licenses. Anything that the Open Source Foundation approves as an open source license is included and allowed. So things like GPL, Apache, MIT, etc. So I have a copyright. Let's run charm proof again. Okay. It's telling me that I still have the blank icon file. That's okay for now. I'll spare you guys with watching me go painstakingly through Inkscape to create a fake icon. I still have the example README file, so let me move readme.ex to readme.md.
I put the Juju icon documentation in the channel if anybody wants to read that.
Perfect.
They give us step-by-step instructions on how to make those icons.
I'm going to change a few things in the README file, mainly get rid of all these little blobs here. Okay, and we're going to go ahead and write this out. So let's run charm proof one more time. So it's a little better. It's still just picking up that I have some boilerplate code in here. Okay. Again, this is not the best example of a README file. You will make yours a lot more verbose. So now we're down to just a few more things. We've already gone through the template. We have a template interface name. So interface name is not actually a valid name. It'll throw a bunch of errors. So what we want to do is open up the metadata YAML file. It's basically saying that we have unused relation. So the pure relation is it works exactly like we do provides and requires, but it automatically provides and requires for itself. So it allows you to talk to the individual units. So as you scale out, we'll do things like replication. We do it with like MongoDB, for instance, and Postgres, do replication. With load balancers, they also create health checks between the load balancers. It allows you to create an interface to talk to each other and know about all of the peers, hence the name, inside of your service deployment. We don't actually have that for this example because we don't need it, so I'm going to run proof one more time. We're down to just two more things. So we know about the template icon already, and the last one is an I being information. This one is the least severe, and it's okay to have information warnings, information alerts. It's basically saying that there are no hooks for the bar relation. So we created hooks for website, but we didn't create any for bar. there may be a case where you don't actually need to write a hook for a relation. Seems kind of crazy. How do you exchange information, for instance? By default, for every relation, no matter whether or not you have a hook, Juju will automatically send this information on the relation wire. It's called the private address. So if all you need to know for your relation is to provide the other service you're connecting to, the IP address of the internal node, then you don't actually have to implement any hooks inside the charm. You just simply define the relation, it'll connect, no hooks will fire, but the other service you're connecting to will get at least the address for the machine. So that's why you may see a relation without any hooks in there. So that's just simply a warning, not a warning, excuse me, simply a note for the user saying that, well, you have a relation, but you haven't put any hooks. Did you mean to create hooks for this or not? And if you didn't, this is fine. You can ignore the eyes successfully. And that's proof in a nutshell. It's a great linting tool, but it's by no means a tool for testing. Which leads me to my next point, and then we'll start actually writing charms. When you're writing charms, we can write charms in any language. You can write them in Bash, you can write them in Python, you can write them in Ruby, Node.js, Chef, Puppet, Ansible, Salt. I think that's all the languages anyone. Oh, PHP. You can write your hooks in any language you want. There's no limitation to that. Did the video stop?
No, I've still got you.
Okay. Cool. So the caveat with writing your language writing your charm in any language is that bear in mind.
Marco? I just lost you. I hear you again, Marco.
I can't hear him yet.
Oh, that's George. Okay.
Hold on, let's give him a second.
Sure.
Might be a microphone or something. Marco, if you can hear me, you could just also quit out of the Hangout. Ensure that the plugin's killed.
To test your people. It makes contributions.
Ensure that the plugin's killed.
What?
Hello?
You there, Marco?
Hold on, let me ping him on IRC.
Okay.
I think he heard me, and
Okay.
he's probably going to rejoin here in a second. Here we go.
Hey, sorry.
Yay.
Fucking crap.
Okay.
Where was I last rambling about?
Show your terminal.
Yep.
If you show your terminal, that's where I can remember.
Okay, so Nessa has a question about did you fix the I relation or the I notification in charm proof? And you were talking about that wasn't, you don't necessarily need to fix that, and some hooks don't require don't require all 4 files.
Right. How far into my spiel about unit testing did I get? Did you guys hear any of that?
I didn't hear anything about unit testing.
Holy crap!
Full minute you were gone. So.
Oh man. Okay. Good. I can cut down my rant then a little bit. To answer your question, yes, Nasita. Eyes are okay. There's nothing to resolve. We can resolve it real quickly by just creating a hook for the file, but hooks are optional for relations. All hooks are optional by default. If you don't have any code for it, you can just omit it, and that's not going to cause a problem. So I was tangenting onto testing. So testing is something that you want to consider as you're writing. Since you can write charms in any language, whether it be Bash, Python, Node.js. You can use it Chef scripts. You can use Puppet, Salt, Ansible, Ruby. You can use really any language to write your charms in. Bear in mind that when you write your charm, the language you choose is the language you're going to have to maintain over time, and that other people will possibly be contributing in. So, for instance, I tend to write a lot of my charms initially in Bash. I prototype very quickly in Bash. As an ex-sysadmin, it all makes sense to me. Once I get a very rough cut of the charm, I can prove it's working, the concept, I like how the charm is structured. That's usually when I'll go and redesign it in another language. Say, maybe leverage Ansible to take care of all the machine configuration, or Chef or Puppet, so that it's easier for me to configure those bits, or rewrite it in Node.js or Python. The advantage of leveraging another language such as those is you can actually write tests for those languages. Not just tests, but unit tests. Unit tests make it way easier for people to contribute and know if they've broken your charm right off the bat. So when you're writing a charm, keep that in mind, that the language you choose may be easy now, but it actually may be quite painful for you in the near future. And I know the OpenStack charmers have quite a bit to say about that, having written almost all of the charms exclusively in one language and then having to go rewrite them when they hit limitations in that one language. So that's it for testing and such that I can think of at the moment. Let's see. I think at this point it would be great to just start writing a charm. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that good? Any other things you guys can add? Anything to add to this?
Absolutely. Let's just write one from.
Let's just burn one. All right.
Yeah.
So, I'm gonna write one for PHP I'm somewhat familiar with the service. I used to hack on it a long time ago. I don't think we have a charm for it yet. So this will be fun to try. Let's go. So I'm going to create it for the Trusty series. I've already went ahead and set up multiple Juju environments. I've got them all bootstrapped, so let's see where I'm at right now. So this is my HP Cloud. So if I do Juju status on HP Cloud, I've got a running HP Cloud instance. I've got a Juju GUI deployed. Refer to the Getting Started video that George did earlier this week. It's on the videos page for juju.ubuntu.com to how to get Juju set up and running for you. I've also got a local environment. Local environment's great, especially when you want to try something out and run at the wall for a while, but don't want to pay for it in a real cloud. And I also have it set up. Oh no, yes, local provider failures. All right, so I don't have a local provider for this. We're gonna do like HP Cloud for now. I'll worry about that later. Let's connect to the GUI and everything. Here we go. But while that's figuring out if it's going to like me or not, let's go ahead and just start writing this charm. So the first thing I'm going to do is charm create. So charm create PHP-BB. And actually this is, I don't think they even have PHP-BB 2 anymore. I think it's only 3. Yeah, only 3. So we're just going to call it PHP-BB straight up. All right, let's go into here. The first thing I like to do is fill out my metadata file. So let's open up metadata YAML. I'm going to go ahead and say this is going to well, I guess it's really more of a form. That's my maintainer. That's my name. This is, I would fill this out a lot more, but I'm going to say installs Apache 2, PHP 5, PHP-BB. So I know that PHP requires MySQL for connections. It's best when you start charming to pick a service you're relatively familiar with. It'll make the tedious process of both learning how to charm while also learning a new software a lot easier when you only have to learn how to write charm rather than learning both of those aspects. I'll go back later on and fill this out with a little more detail. This is an application. It's not a subordinate, so I'm just going to get rid of this entire field altogether. That's not really needed. I know that PHP sets up a website. It creates something that is exposed by HTTP. So I'm going to go ahead and say this provides a website on the HTTP interface. And then I'm going to say that it requires a, hello. It requires a database, and it needs that on the MySQL interface. And we don't have a peer for this. So at the end of the day, this is essentially the basic thing I need to get started that I know is required for setting up a PHP install. I know that it's going to expose a website. I know that it's going to require a database. So this is essentially what I have for my metadata YAML. This could definitely be expanded. If I was reviewing this right now, I'd say, oh, please talk a little bit more about what you're doing here, what this setup looks like so people can understand. But since for the sake of demoware, we're going to leave that there, I'm going to go ahead and split my screen. All right, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to dive right into the config.yaml. I don't know what configuration values, if any, I need to or want to expose. So I'm simply going to delete all of these right now. And charm proof is not like that. Oh, I have to write out my file here. Charm proof. Okay. I'm just going to delete the config.yaml for now. We don't need that yet. Get the readme moved over. Okay, so, and so I'm pretty satisfied with everything so far. So I've resolved most of the proofing errors, get past all the generic boilerplate things. So really I have a terrible icon file and no relations, and then there's no config file. But these are all they're informations, they're not required, so we're okay, we're ready to keep on proceeding. The first thing I want to do is mess with the install hook. The problem is really what you would normally do is you'd install PHP and then you kind of take the steps you did to install, pull them out, and then kind of put them in the hooks. The problem is it can be quite tedious to go back and forth between a server that you have to spin up and try out and then move everything back and forth. So I know some of the basic steps I need to do. Like I need to install Apache for sure. Definitely need to install PHP and the MySQL bindings for PHP. But that's about all I can really do without actually going and like reading more stuff. So I'm going to fill in some very basic things in these hooks, and then I'm going to do what I call broken charm writing. And I'll explain that in just a second. So get rid of all this boilerplate stuff. No, there's no PHP package. Just going to do an apt-get install PHP 5. I need PHP 5 CLI probably, PHP 5 MySQL, Apache 2, and I think that's about it. I think that's it for now. That's all I can think of. I'm going to do that, and then I'm going to type this.
Actually, Michael,
yeah.
There is a PHP BB3 package available in apt-get.
Yeah, we're going to pretend like that's not there for a hot second.
That's fine.
Yeah, but that is good that I thought there was a package. I could not remember. Towards the end, we'll talk about how we can actually incorporate that package into our charm with configuration options. By default, if it has a package in the archive, you almost always want to install from the package. The great thing about the archive is security vetted. It's like really well protected, always guaranteed to work. Fantastic things. Not everything is in the archives, so if it's not in the archives, of course, you have to install from upstream. There also tends to be some version lag, so it depends on how fast the software is moving. For instance, things like Ruby and Nginx, or not Nginx, excuse me, Node.js kind of move really fast. They release often, and so you tend to get out-of-date and unsupported versions in the archives. While that's a separate problem that's being handled, and people are working to solve getting more recent versions into the archive, you can get around that in Charms by just simply installing from upstreams or from PPAs. The caveat is, of course, you lower the level of support for some things. So this is all I'm going to write for now. I'm going to get rid of these relation hooks.
And did you explain why you have the exit 1 in there?
No, I didn't. Caught me off guard there. So, yeah, whenever a hook exits, if the hook exits with a greater than 0 status, it creates an error. It ripples an error out to Juju, and then Juju stops executing anything on that server until you acknowledge the error. We can use this to our advantage by killing the hook. By doing so, Juju stops at the install hook, and we're able to jump in. At that point, we can jump in and start actually triaging and building the charm on the server, running live. It combines the two efforts of having to spin up a container somewhere to do the install yourself and then move those instructions to the charm. It kind of puts those two into one step.
It's a really cool trick. I really like it.
Yeah, so I started using it. I've been using this for a while, and I figure I started articulating a little bit more for people who are having a bit of trouble getting started running charms. So real quickly, just a brief bash thing. By default, if any of these commands exit with a greater than 1 status, unless it's the very last command, bash won't actually ripple that exit out. If you set E says that anytime a command fails, it should just automatically send that error signal to the script and kill execution. The U and the X, the X is Xtrace, so the log is very verbose. You get like an Xtrace of what's going on. And then the U is basically saying that if there's any undefined variables that are used, that's an error. So you can't just use undefined variables. Essentially, it makes Bash a little tighter, a little more a bit like a language. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to create some hooks. I'm just going to touch hooks, website, relation. I need
relation changed, right? Oh, I see what you're doing.
I don't think that's the right format. I think I might be going. Yeah, I might be doing a little bit too much. Is it friends? Nope, it must be braces. If this doesn't work, I'm just gonna not do bashisms.
Maybe no.
Okay, so we're going to pretend like I didn't do that. Oh, actually, you know what? I think you're right about the spaces. Yes. But why didn't let me do that? Oh, because there's no hooks directory. So that was it. Wasting everyone's time while I tried this out. And I'm gonna do the same thing for database. So these are what I've created here. I have a website and I got a database. So I'm gonna create hooks for website and database. And then I'm gonna clean up my mess. Okay.
So Marco, you mentioned you can make up these words, the provide and the requires. Can be anything you want, like website or database. But the interface, is that a standard thing that we have to know?
Right. So the interfaces are not arbitrary. These are things that you want to connect to. I happen to know that the website provides an HTTP interface and that MySQL has a MySQL interface. You can find these out by going to...
I can pull that up in the docs.
Yes, if you would, that'd be great in the IRC room.
Okay.
Link to that. But the charms in the on the charm inside the charm store will say what interfaces they provide, and the README should cover what those interfaces mean. A lot of them don't have that at the moment, unfortunately. But that's what should happen, and what will happen as we're currently auditing a lot of our charms. So this is my HP Cloud environment. It actually came up after I did all the right instructions. Let's go back to my terminal. So I've got a bunch of hooks. They're all empty. Actually, they are all empty for the most part. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to deploy my charm. So what I'm going to do is say Juju deploy. Make sure I'm on the right environment, so I'm using HP Cloud. So Juju deploy. Repository. And this is going to be my Juju repository. So what I said before was /charms. That's where I have all my series directories and all my charms below those. I'm going to deploy local trusty phpbb. In a few seconds, it'll come back and say it's deployed it. There we go. I'm going to Juju deploy MySQL because I know I need MySQL for this stuff to work. So I might as well get it up there, get it spun up, and get it going. I'll run now is... So to see what your environment looks like at any one time, you run Juju status. As you can see, we're waiting for machines to come up. It's also quite verbose. There's a Juju plugins project. A couple plugins that help simplify the use of Juju. One of them is pprint command. It just condenses the output of the Juju status stuff. So I'm just going to watch Juju pprint. So we can kind of just see constantly looping over what the status of our environment is. So right now we have phpbb and MySQL, and they're both pending. And we have a Juju GUI, and it's set up and running and happy and started and joyful. So, oops, wrong screen. There we go. So while I'm waiting for this to come up, we're going to take a quick look at the GUI. So in the GUI, I see I've got phpbb. It's blank because I don't have an icon for it still. And then I have MySQL, it's got this awesome MySQL Dolphin icon. Eventually, these will pop up. They'll go from pending to started. But everything I can do from the command line I can also do from here, with the exception of like local charms. You'd have to like create a tarball and upload them. It's kind of tedious, but I could have deployed MySQL from right here, just kind of dragged and dropped it. But regardless, the GUI is fantastic, especially when you're doing local development and you get tired of staring at the command line for so long. This is a great way to work around that. So still waiting for these to come up. Looks like the MySQL has a unit, which is good, so we're getting there. PHP should be coming up soon behind it. So while it's waiting, what will happen is the install hook will attempt to install packages, and then it will essentially reach an error. So this will go from pending to installing to error. And once it's in an error state, what we can do is we can run Juju debug hooks. There's several sessions about debug hooks that have been recorded previously. It's quite a powerful tool. And what it does is it puts you in a special hook execution environment. So while these are spinning up, I'm going to talk briefly about what that hook execution environment is. So when Juju actually executes these hooks, it executes them in a very limited environment. So there's virtually no environment variables exposed. They're very much reset back to the bare bones POSIX environments. It creates a few additional environment variables, and those allow you to use the internal Juju commands to run various ways for you to run the tools that allow you to communicate with Juju. So Juju has 8 internal commands. If you were to log into a node and run these commands, they wouldn't work. They only work inside of a hook execution environment. That's why debug hooks is such a vital tool, especially when developing, because you can run these commands, view their output, and so on and so forth. So the commands are, if I remember correctly, you have unit get, Unit get allows you to query information about the currently deployed unit. This takes one of two values. It has a private address. This is your internal network IP address, and it has a public address. This is whatever the cloud or the unit has said is the public-facing address. These may be identical depending on your cloud environment. For instance, local provider, the private and the public address are the same because it's LXC on your computer. Whereas in Amazon or HP Cloud or Azure or Joint, it'll actually be two separate addresses. Private being the internal, usually a 10 dot something network, and then the public being whatever can be reached from the outside world. So that's one of the commands. The other commands you got is config get. So config get you can run at any time, and it allows you to receive configuration values that a user has sent to the charm. So if we had outlined any config.yaml settings, we can retrieve those here. If you run it without any parameters, it'll give you all of them. It also takes a format flag, so by default it outputs in a YAML format. You can do format JSON, which will give you a JSON output of the data. You can also request specific multiple keys, so you can say key, etc., or other key 0, key 1, and it'll produce the values for those. The next one is used during relations. So we have a relation get and conversely a relation set. Relation get allows you to get, just like config get, either all of the keys with a format flag, which is optional. Optional parameters are the parentheses. So you can do a format equals JSON, for instance. It also allows you to enter in a key, or you can just run it as is, and it'll allow you just to get all of the keys that are provided. Relation set is the converse relation get. It allows you to send keys, so you can just say it's a key value pair, so it can be key equals val, and you can do that as many times as you want, and that'll send data when you're in a relation hook the other side. Let's check on these here. The other one is, let's see, there's config, units, relations. Matt, what am I missing? I know there's relation ID and relation list.
Yeah, relation list and relation IDs. Looks like open and close port.
Yeah, open port and conversely close port. Something that we didn't talk about much earlier, but when you're deploying in most clouds, at least clouds that have a firewaller, so clouds like Amazon, HP, Joint, Azure, that have a security groups or something anomalous to security groups, by default all the ports in your machine are closed, so no one can access them. So in charms, we request that you call out to this open port command. So for instance, you could run open port 80, and we'll do this in the charm. And what this will do is it'll tell Juju that when the user wishes to expose the service, this is the port you need to open in the firewall. So it won't automatically open it right away. You as a user will still have to run Juju expose service. And once you do that, whatever port was opened is what will be open in the firewall at the time. For clouds like the local provider and MAS and some OpenStacks, depending on how they're configured, that don't have a firewaller, all the ports are open by default. There's discussions going on in the core team about maybe using local firewalls or things of that nature when needed, but no decisions that I know of have been made at this point. So that's still very much up in the air. But for the time being, there's just no port controls there.
Also, Marco, my favorite one is Juju log.
Oh yeah, that's what I always forget. Juju log. Juju log allows you to put stuff. Oh, I know. Sorry, computer. Didn't mean to upset you there. Juju log allows you to put stuff into the actual log file for the unit specifically. So you can say Juju log. This is what I did, and it'll just put that message into the log. It's a great way, instead of using something like print or echo, you can just use Juju log instead. Much more preferred method. Mm-hmm. It shows up, I think, as an info, and then all the other stuff that gets outputted from the hook shows up as debug, and you can actually filter the logs when you're looking at logs in Juju using the debug log command. So, MySQL has done some stuff. PHPBB still hasn't moved anywhere. Let's do status PHPBB. Oh, that's why. Juju resolve, Juju retry, provisioning. So machine 1 failed to provision for whatever reason. I'm going to have it retry. Let's see what happens. All right, it's pending again, which is a good sign. Yeah.
There's some question in the IRC.
Yeah.
Yep, it's only when you're in a hook environment that you can run Juju log or any of these commands that Marco was talking about. Do you have anything else to add there?
Yeah. So I'll show you an example. So we're still waiting for PHPB. So a great command that we're going to cover in the troubleshooting session is what happens when machines fail. In this case, for whatever reason, this machine failed to start up. There's a retry provisioning, which will tell Juju, I know it failed, but just please try it one more time. Sometimes there's some networking hiccups. That seems to have resolved it. We seem to be on our way with that machine coming up. So to facilitate this, show me these commands kind of an aspect, the CTA and all, I'm going to go ahead and run Juju debug hooks. And we're going to debug hooks MySQL 0. So it's not actually in an error state. If you notice, it's here, it's started, it's green, it's good to go. In the GUI, we're going to see the same thing. MySQL is all pretty, looking good. So I'm going to go ahead and just dump in the debug hooks real quickly and trigger an event and then show you these commands actually running. So in a few seconds, it'll pop up. Here we go. So if I run Juju log right now, it's going to give me an error. It's like Juju log is not installed. Command not found, etc. I'm going to trigger an event real quickly, so I'm just going to change a configuration option. So in this case, I'm going to change one that does not actually matter, this one here. Save the change. So what happens is, in a few seconds, this screen will change. So now I'm in a hook context. If you notice, the prompt has changed to MySQL/0:config changed. Now I'm actually running inside of a hook. So if we go back here, for instance, oh no, I don't want to do that. Oh. What's the super escape? That was control AA. Oh, I'm in caps lock, that's why. 1 second. There we go. So if I run env, and lots of different stuff in here, etc. If I go back to here and run env, same bits of information, but what you have is a bunch of Juju information now stored in here. So there's a bunch of metadata that's being stored and shown in this hook context. So if I run Juju log now, it gives me an error about there being no message. So I can say Juju log. And that'll be sent to the actual Juju log. So let's go here. Fail. So as you see here, this popped up in the info. It says Juju log was invoked. It says, hey, everyone. So that's how you can use these commands. So likewise, I can run inside the hook context config get. And this shows me all the configuration options, again, in that YAML formatting. Likewise, we can do the formatting flag as JSON output instead. So these are all the configuration options for the MySQL charm and their current values. This is the one I changed, SEP OSD replication count. It increased from 2 to 3. The current value is 3, etc. Looks like there's a question.
Yep.
In case it hasn't been addressed before, recommendations on how to keep multiple branches for a charm. I found this issue in the past where keeping them side by side inside the charm repository would cause issues. Yes, this is a great question. And I'm sure it's wreaked havoc for quite a few people. I think, Matt, did you get bitten by this with the Tomcat charm?
I did. I'm grinning because it's happened to me. So yeah, I'll let you explain it. But yeah, I'm one of the people that had this problem as well.
So fantastic question. I'm just going to check to see where things are. Still pending. We're still waiting for the cloud. Take your time, cloud. No rush at all day to talk about this stuff. So the question is let's say I want to work on multiple charms. Well, rather multiple versions of the same charm. Like I have my foobar. Let's see where it is here. I have my foobar, and I want to try like foobar dev. Like so, I'm just going to copy. Or is what I use. Foobar to foobar 1, for instance. So now I've got these two directories in here. So if I try to deploy foobar 1, repository is charms, and I want a local trusty. What happens is the charm is not actually found. It'll throw an error. Well, we should throw an error. Please throw an error. It locked up my prompt. This is a good sign. Anyways, we're going to pretend that threw an error. It'll eventually fail. The reason why is even though we've called this foobar 1, it actually isn't foobar 1. It's still the name that's provided in the metadata YAML file. Mm-hmm. So inside foobar 1, if we actually look at, because I'm also foolish in my commands. Let me fat finger that. That's maybe why. Let's do the rsync again. Much better. Deploy one more time. Still not going to work. Probably still not going to work. I've been surprised before. All right. Definitely not working.
So the name of the charm is not tied by the directory. It's tied by the metadata.yaml file. So when he did the copy there, both of them have a metadata.yaml that say their name is foobar. So you need to change the name in the metadata.yaml file to get that to resolve. I was doing some development on a Tomcat charm, and I was deploying it on my local environment, but I was always getting the old Tomcat charm, and I couldn't understand what was going on. Marco pointed me to the name in the metadata.yaml file.
Right. So if I were to now name this foobar 1 and write this out and deploy foobar 1, now it'll actually work and deploy that charm. So how do I combat this is the question. The only way to really combat this, unfortunately, is to create two separate charm repositories. So for instance, what I could do is make a charms dev repo. And then move my foobar charm into there, work on them separately. Then when I run Juju deploy, I would either use repository charms or charms dev, depending on which one I wanted. That's a bit clunky, especially if you like having them in the same directory. The only other alternative is to actually change the charm name inside the metadata YAML file for that charm, for that time being, until you're ready to merge it or use it as the new version of that charm. Mm-hmm. So fantastic question. It is a little painful, but it exists simply for a reason, because the charm store, Juju itself, everything uses that metadata file. That's the only thing that makes it a charm is in there. So let's see. We're still pending. That's annoying. See if we've got any further. I just not have internet anymore? That would be good.
So Marco, are you you're doing debug law, or you're doing you're in the debug hooks right now? Is that blocking anything else? Is that why it's not returning?
No, it shouldn't be.
Okay.
This is something entirely, probably slightly more annoying.
Okay.
So let's go here. This is more HP Cloud is not responding to me. Hey, can't catch a break for these demos. Yeah, I still have internet, which is good. It's typically what I like to hear. Yeah, the watch hasn't updated since 1512. It's now 1517, so it's been a 5-minute gap. Status isn't responding. Oh, just want to write a charm. Oh. What? The heck? It's trying to dial my home computer. Why? Bugger. Let's see if I get local working.
Cat+1's asking if the Juju Bootstrap node is not on.
Yeah, I'm about 95% certain it's on. I certainly haven't turned it off, though we could log into HP Cloud and find out if it was turned off. That would be very sad. It was. The cloud is ephemeral, I guess, after all.
Yep.
Hey, would you look at that? Someone turned off my node. It's exactly the problem.
Good call. Good call, Cat+1.
Yeah, thanks, Catbus1. Let's I guess I gotta destroy my environment now. And I guess I'll have to rebootstrap and take a little more time. So while this is bootstrapping, I'm going to attempt to fix the local provider, and with the few moments we have after that, actually show you guys how to write a charm. All right, so while it's doing that, let's look at this. If anyone wants any more questions, feel free to dump them into the IRC chat while I attempt to sort this out. Debugging on the fly. Okay, so I have a new Bootstrap node on HP Cloud now, which is a good sign. It's still waiting to come up. This means this has gone away. Yeah, because I left up a while ago. Let's see what's going on over here. Nothing special. Okay, we got a machine this time for local provider. The local provider's back. All right, we'll go with this for now. It's better to use the local provider anyways. It's so much faster. So let's just ditch this terminal screen for now. Go over here. Let's do some more deployments. Let's get this up here. Cool. Juju deploy. A little bit of catch up to do. Repository. Charms, local, trusty, PHP, go, go, go. I can get rid of this. All right. Another machine created. I love how fast these things are. Oh, created it so fast, the charm setup before the thing even got there. Crazy. So anyways, we got the desired effect, which was the charm is now in an error state. The install hook failed. It failed for precisely all the right reasons, mainly because we told it to fail. So I'm going to Juju debug hooks phpbb0. This will launch a session for me. So in order to get the hook to fire again, I have to run this command. It looks like this. Let's do Control F2. Yes. So let's shrink this down a little bit. Juju resolved retry phpbb0. All this is going to do is that hook that failed, go ahead and retry to execute it. Since we're inside debug hooks, it'll get captured, and we can actually we're now in the install hook. So you think, okay, great, Marco, it's taking you 20 minutes to get this far. What does this afford me? Why do I care? Well, for one thing, if you type pwd, you're actually inside the charm directory on the unit. Oh. And you know it would be great if the server team installed tree by default. That would be awesome. I have used this command so much. So if we look at here, here is our charm that we created. It's now uploaded. We're actually in the directory. We can actually start hacking on it. So I'm going to open up hooks install. I'm going to get rid of this line, really. And then I'm going to think, all right, what else do I want to do during the installation? Well, I'm probably going to want to grab the source. So let's go ahead and just grab the PHPBB download. So in another window that you cannot see, I'm on the PHPB website. I have found the latest download for PHPBB. I'm going to put that right here. And I want to put it in temp. Cool. So this will grab it. They also are nice enough to provide an MD5 sum on their website. So I'm going to copy this. It's also being downloaded over HTTPS, which is great. So one thing we really value in charms is cryptographic verification of payloads. At a bare minimum, over SSL, make sure you are actually verifying the SSL certificate so you can validate that this payload came from who they said it was going to come from. If they have SHA-1 sums or MD5 sums, use those as well. Those are also great to be able to validate that the package downloaded completely. There's no interrupted or lost packets. So I'm going to say, what's the command? I'm not going to use caps. I'm 95% sure that the second field is the actual sum. And we're going to say if not equal to payload, then we have a problem, exit 1, but let's actually say okay. The next thing I want to do is, well, extract PHPBB, I guess. But first,
Hey Marco, I think you grabbed the wrong MD sum. You grabbed the one for the zip, not the.
oh, thank you. That would have been fun. It's also really good when you have someone like Matt sitting in a hangout with you, looking at what you do, and reminding you that you should pay a little more attention. Cool. So just to make sure that I'm not crazy.
No, that's not it either.
You're talking about, oh, that's the patch files. All right. Let's do this one more time. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah.
Is it right? Yeah. Okay. Good.
Okay.
Third time. The charm. So I'm gonna go ahead and just copy this. I'm gonna close this hook. I'm gonna run this command. I kind of see what happens on the server. All right. I can run MD5 sum. I can sum this file here. It's the first field, son of a gun. So I'm just going to run that. Kill that there. This is also very important that you should, oops, hello. You should always end your commands. Syntax highlighting for the win. So I do my verification of the payload stuff that I'm going to extract. So it's just what? Tar. All right, I'm going to put everything in SRP because that's what we promote as best practice for saving client files. You all should run man hair when you get a chance. And I think that's pretty much it for the install hook. I don't think I really need to do anything else for install at the moment. That should suffice. So what I can do now is I can just run the install hook. Oh, that's a problem. I should definitely have a Y flag in here. Almost certainly definitely have a Y flag in there.
Yes.
Let's run hooks install again. Oh, okay, it does all the stuff I wanted it to. Progressing nicely. All right, so now we have a mismatch. I did something wrong. Ah, well, so what's great is you can interactively debug things as well. So as I wrote this install hook, if I had written it on my computer, I'd have to re-upload the charm, redeploy, wait a few minutes depending on the cloud provider, and then find out that I put MD5 instead of MD5 sum. So let's just do this. Write this guy out, run this one more time. Cool. So a bunch of stuff just happened. I didn't get any errors. Nope. If I look in serve, I've got a PHPPB directory, which is what I wanted. So the last thing I want to do is permissions. I don't want things to run as Ubuntu. I want things to run as a www data user. So I'm going to open my hooks install one more time. And I'm going to just do this massive sweeping chown command. And that. So good. Run this one more time just to see what happens. This is the great thing about item potency is I can keep running this over and over and over again, and no one's the wiser. Everyone's happy. Cool. Everything works again. Let's do another look at SRV. It's owned by www data. There's a directory. So this is everything I figure I want to do for install. I can't really think of anything else that I want to do during the install phase. I know my next big hurdle is going to be getting the database information into the right spot. So let's go ahead and just type exit here for now. What's great is all the time we've been sitting in this install hook, all the other events for Juju have been queuing up, ready for execution. So when you enter an error state, everything else gets kind of queued and waiting to run. As soon as the queue is cleared and the next item is ready, it'll pop it off and run it. So in debug hooks, the next event is the config changed hook. I don't have any configuration options for here yet. If we run config get, it's going to be very sad output. There's nothing. There is absolutely nothing to do. So I'm going to skip this hook for now. We can come back to this later when we actually have configuration values if we have time. So let's go ahead and exit that. The next one's the start hook. So let's go at hooks start. So this is a PHP application, which means it runs based on the web server. So I'm going to go ahead and put in service Apache 2 start. Let's run start hook. Let's put this in here. Cool. So this seems to be working well. I thought that Apache 2 would freak out if I told it to start over and over and over again. Apparently that's not the case. Yeah, I guess it's okay with that. Totally cool with that. Okay. So I'm gonna do this instead because that bothers me a little bit. The things you learn in demos. I'm going to say that. So always try to restart it, and if it can't restart it, it'll try starting it. So if restart fails for a reason, it'll attempt to start, and if start fails, it'll just fail. That's usually what I do in nodes because, for instance, during the install of Apache 2 package actually starts Apache 2 process. Whether or not that's the best practice, that's debatable. People who are doing packaging. I just need to know that always try to restart Apache, and if you can't restart it, then try starting it. This pattern is developed because upstart scripts, if you try to restart an upstart script that's not actually started, upstart will fail. So you can do restart that or try to start it. So we're good here. I think that's enough for the start hook. I don't really have anything else I want to add to that. So I'm going to exit. And we've reached a lull. Everything's just kind of cool and idle at the moment. There's no pending queue execution, just nothing to go on there. The reason being is because we haven't actually done any relation stuff. So let's run Juju status, make sure everything is okay and copacetic. MySQL, PHPBB, both are started. Rock and roll. Local provider is amazing. I love it. Add relation, MySQL, PHPBB. Go. We're gonna pop back over here. So I've just added a new event cycle to both those charms. So in a few seconds, we'll see those things pop up here in debug hooks. mainly we get the first relation, which is database relation joined. Now, at this point in time, I don't really have to do anything to prepare to receive the MySQL data. I don't have to create any files. I don't have to really do much at all. So I really don't actually need this hook. So I'm just going to delete it for now. And that's it. I mean, I can see if we have relation data. We may have it. We may not. It depends on how long it took to get the other hook. Oh, we do already. So cool. But either way, I don't really want to do that management data in join. I want to do it in relation changed. So the next event that fires is relation changed because we have new information on the wire. I'm going to open up hooks database relation changed. I'm going to make this a bash hook. So the first thing I want to do is gather all the information that I know I can get. So or that I need rather for the charm. So in the case of the MySQL service, if you don't already know what values are going to be sent, this is a great time to run relation get. And so you see here it sends over all this information: the database name, the host that you can connect to get this information, the password, the private address, which is always sent from Juju by default. Notice that these are the same as host and private address. Whether or not it's a slave, and then the username. All this stuff was dynamically generated by the MySQL charm. Didn't have to do anything. I know that I care about the user, the password, the host, and the database. Those are the things that I need in order to connect to MySQL from PHPBB. I don't really care if it's a slave or not. Some charms like MediaWiki do slave notations and can set up read and write slaves. That's more than I need for this charm, so I'm not really going to care about this value for now, but it's there if I needed it. So let's go ahead and open up relation changed. I'm going to say database equals relation get database, and the user equals relation get username, user, and password. Okay. User password equals relation get password, and the host. Cool. So with that in mind now, I have the 4 values that I need to proceed. But I actually need them to continue. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do a quick check. If So what this does is it says, if for whatever reason this hook fires before MySQL sends me the relation data, what I can do is say I don't have the data yet, I can just exit 0. This will safely terminate the execution of the hook, and it won't hold up the hook execution line. And at this point, the hook will fire again when those details are available. Every time the data changes, the hook will refire again. So there's going to be cases, since both of these hooks, both the database hooks on both charms are firing at the exact same time, there may be an event where MySQL takes longer to execute than this one does. Since we're sitting in debug hooks, MySQL has plenty of time to finish its setup and send the data, which is why we got it right away. But in some cloud instances, it's not always going to be the case. So you always want to make sure whenever you're receiving data from Juju, especially relation data, that you actually have the data before proceeding, because there may be an instance where you don't. So cool. I have my credential data. I'm going to move forward. And what I want to do is place this in the configuration file for PHPBB. So this is when I go and refer to the installation guide, new installations, SRV PHPB. This stuff goes in here somewhere, probably under config.php, but there's no config.php example file. So what I'm going to do is I need to generate this configuration file before I even know what to put into it. So I'm going to cheat just a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open up this in my web browser. So it has like a web installer thing, which is cool, I guess, but kind of not cool when you're trying to do this stuff. Unit-get. Here's my IP. I'm going to go ahead and pop this in here, and boom, default Apache page. Oh, you know why? Because Marco didn't configure Apache yet. We should probably do that during the install phase. So I'm going to quickly open up hooks install. I need to create an Apache template. So I'm just going to quickly fill this kind of stuff in. There's not a lot to fill in for these. They kind of all just work as is. Server, I need a domain, don't I? So, that should work. I'm going to put this in my charm directory. So now I have this very basic PHP conf. I'm going to do in my hooks install. I need to a2 dis site default, a2 end site phpbb3, and then I need to install tech o root tech u root. Right. It's O and G.
Marco, can you remind me what the command install does? Just creates a directory with the ownership there?
It installs the file with the, you do like it's file installation and ownership stuff. It's like a great way to place files onto a server.
Okay.
I want to make this 0600 for permissions, and then basically file/phpbb3.conf to etc Apache 2 sites available phpbb3.conf. That should do it. And then I disable the default site, enable phpbb3. I also need to a2 nmod php5 in case it already isn't, and rewrite. So these are all things that you do for Apache. So as I move through the installation of the service, I can go back and edit hooks. And then what's great, especially when they're not relation hooks, is I can run hooks install again. Like, I need to do that now. Please go do that. So site default doesn't exist. Let's do a2 dis site. Oh, it's 000 default. I got that. Okay. I'm hip to that. I can deal with it. Cool. Run hooks install again. Awesome. Things worked again. So things are good. Let's run hooks start. And Apache gets restarted. Fantastic. And it didn't error out. Even better. So now if we go back to the web browser, we have forbidden. Ooh, good. We're getting somewhere. Let's take a look. Oh, because Apache 2.4 that's right. Defers everything. So we have to do is it directory? Dang, I forgot the syntax for this.
What do you want me to look up?
The directory syntax for allow deny. It's like this is a silly Apache 2.4 thing. Here it is. Here it is.
Just letting you know you're running out of time. You've got like 12
I know.
Yeah. And I'm gonna drop to hit another call, so I'll see you guys later.
Wait, you can't drop. You're hosting. You just drop?
Yeah. I mean, I won't say anything anymore. I'll just be gone.
Okay.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
I'll require all granted. That's what we need. Okay. Dang. I think this goes in a directory. Ugh. I hate that my brain isn't working right now. Okay, that did it. Oh, brain farts everywhere. All right, now that people know how good I am at writing Apache configuration files, what I'm really just going for is during the install, yes, these are all fine, yes. Oh, so it wants GD graphics, so I should put that in the install hook. All right, start install. It allows you to enter in your MySQL information, and then it'll generate a configuration file for you that you can then place. So what I want to get the configuration file so I know what it looks like, so that I can manually install it myself. So I'm going to fill in these details real quickly from relation get. So the database host is this. Server port is blank. Database name is goobity gooped. User is this crazy long string, and the password is this also crazy long string. And proceed to the next step. Connection successful, so the database is working, which is great. Blah, 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 blah. Let's just blow past this. Ooh. Okay. So the configuration file has been written. So that's what I wanted. I want to look at this configuration file. If I go to here, Here's the config.php. It's got stuff in it now. So if I can open it up, I can see it's very straightforward little PHP file that just has the database connection information in here. So what I want to do is I want to copy this, and I want to copy it not from screen. Go. Copy this information, and I'm going to auto-generate this myself from within the charm. So if I go back to here, I'm going to open up hooks database relation changed, and I'm going to say this file is going to go right here. And so I'm going to use a here doc. Really what you want to do is put this in like a template, something easier to manipulate. For now I'm just doing this here doc because it's simple to demonstrate what I'm doing. And I'm just going to fill in these blanks here. So this becomes DB host. This becomes database. This becomes user. Becomes DB, or sorry, password. And the rest are there as they are, and that's fine. Now I know that it had this here, this define PHP BB install true. We actually haven't installed PHP BB at this point. We've only simply set up database connections. So I'm going to leave this as false for now, but I may need to change that in the future. I just need to be aware that that's there. So at that point, I'm going to quit this file. Oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to EOF. It's supposed to be to it, right? Yeah, there we go. All right, looks like we're just a few minutes left. Let's run this to see what happens. So if we did this correctly, what I'm going to do is run the install again. So hooks install. Boom. It installed the missing GD libraries. It'll also unpack a fresh new copy of PHP, so it'll overwrite all the settings that we had in there. And then after this runs, we won't be able to get a fully functioning charm out just yet, but that's the basics. I'll show you guys how to get the files back off the server, which is vital if you want to make sure you save your work. So the hook, that's run. Let's run hook start. Make sure the Apache configuration file is running as it's supposed to. It is. And now we're going to take a look. I'm going to quit this.
Don't you need
the
to call?
config file is blank.
Okay.
Nothing in there. I'm going to run hooks DB relation changed. I'm going to edit hooks DB relation changed, and I'm going to put that all vital important.
Set UX.
Run it again. So it looks like it did a bunch of stuff. Let's take a look. So this got filled in as expected. There's the host. There's the DB name, user, password, etc. It doesn't have that stuff at the bottom. Now if I go back to here, and I go to here, let's see what happens when I do this. So install, next. All those pretty things are there, next. Oh, it didn't load my information. So there must be some other things that I need to do to get this to work. But essentially at this point I'd be looking at documentation for the service to figure out how I can set this up. If there's a way I can do the install from the command line, potentially even hit this install page from the command line. Actually, you know what? I think that at phpbb install thing is what we want. Oh, it's not there anymore. Let's see if that does it. Yeah, so it didn't quite like that.
Did you get? I thought the command was long. Or I thought the define was longer. So did you get the right define?
I might not have. I'll need to look into this a little more. I'm pretty sure that it has an install for the command line, so I can just run this install once I have the configuration files filled out and just have it go. That would be the best way to run it. It depends on the service you're writing for. We have just a few minutes left, so pile in your questions while I go and attempt to download what we've done so far. So,
yep.
We have this here. I'm going to exit this hook.
So again, all of your files, all of your hooks, and all the stuff that we're editing are all on that virtual machine. So if you destroyed environment, it would all be gone. I've done that before when developing on a hook. So you got to copy all these back to your local PC to survive a reboot of Juju environment.
Exactly. So what we're going to do is, I'm still in debug hooks. I'm going to exit debug hooks. The machine's still running, and I want to do is run an rsync. So I believe it's going to be, let's go into the PHP charm. Rsync, tech E, Juju SSH. I just realized how extremely long and convoluted this looks. That did not work. Oh, wait, we have Juju SCP. Never mind. What am I thinking?
That Juju SCP will flatten the links.
Well, it won't make. Whoa,
Yeah.
That's not what I wanted.
Never mind.
Why does it not let me connect to that? Oh, that's why. So everything's in varlib Juju agents. If you look in here, there's a unit phpbb. We're going to go into here. If you look in here, there's a charm directory. That's the directory we want. This is our copy path, essentially. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to run Juju SCP. And I strongly prefer rsync. I don't know the commands for SCP. This is when I fall flat on my face and people in IRC laugh. How terrible I am. Yeah, it's R. I was right. Why do you make me look silly? Man. Come on, guys. That's interesting. They say you can use R, but you can't actually use R. Let's do this. Yeah, thank you, Chuck. So we're going to use rsync because that's the command that I know and love, and we're going to do this flag because that's the flag that I know and love, and we're going to put this IP address in because that's the IP address that we know the machine to be. So we're going to use good old-fashioned regular tools, etc. Brother, you kidding me? Okay, so rsync abz ubuntu at the IP address colon /libjuju agents unit name unit number / charm, and then make sure you're in the charm directory, and that'll sync all the files down. And then actually, if we add the delete flag, it'll delete all the hooks we got rid of. Cool. We only got rid of one hook. That's fine. So now if we look at our tree here, this is our hook as it is. If we look at hooks, DB relation change, this is all code that we wrote. We can safely put it in version control. We can move forward from there. That's it for our time. I'll stick around in the room if anyone has any more questions, but barring all of the mishaps I had with, as all demos I seem to go awry, that's more or less how I start writing a charm, is I simply break the charm, deploy the charm, and then hack on it in the unit so I can be on the machine live when I'm making changes and not have to retry every other time, redeploy every other time, and figure out what I'm doing.
That's really a speed saving. That's really blown my mind on writing charms. It's really saved a lot of time.
And I will mention that this whole rsync process at the end, which was tedious and is acknowledged as being tedious, the core team is working on a set of tools to help people who are writing charms on the local provider to do things like mounting the charm directory, so every time you make a change, it'll just sync to your computer automatically. Really cool stuff like that, which are happening on the core team now during this cycle that we can see coming up in the near future, which will make these kind of charm development paper cuts really seamless and awesome. So I think that's it. I don't know if you have anything else, Matt, that you want to mention?
Nope. Thanks for your time, and you can find us in Juju on freenode.net if you need to ask any other questions or you have any other problems with writing your charms or any of the things you saw in this video. We hang out there every day, so look us up.
Great. Thanks, Matt and George, for sitting through the session and accompanying me on this journey of charm writing. Like Matt said, Juju is also a mailing list, juju@list.ubuntu.com. We're on Ask Ubuntu. If you have questions, you can go to askubuntu.com, ask your question, tag it with the Juju tag. Someone will be along, hopefully, to answer your question. And thank you guys again. Enjoy the rest of Open Ubuntu Summit Week. Oh, I'm waving, but no one can see me. There you go. Bye, everybody. So, for those of you who stuck around, George is in a meeting, and he controls the Ubuntu stream. So, this is where I sit around and call shenanigans. I don't know. I don't want to like leave the hangout. I feel bad, but at the same time, there's not much talk here. So, Matt, how's the summit going for you? How's the online summit going so far for you?
It's going well. It's going well. There's a lot of information, a lot of good stuff. So, I really like that trick on breaking the charm. Like you said, it saves so much time. Honestly, that's one of the best things I've learned, recently. That's really awesome. So, I appreciate it. I know new people to charm writing might not think it's as fast as or might not see the advantage of it until they're starting to write charms like I have. So, I think that's just awesome. So. I think I am going to drop, though, and we'll let George. He can edit the start and ending of these videos, right?
Yeah. I hope he can. I think Jose said he's going to take a look to see if he could stop the live stream.
Oh, okay.
I think it's a little comical. I might ping him and just constantly until he responds. I'll probably be banned from flooding on IRC. All right, well, thanks again, Matt. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
I'll talk to you in a few minutes because we're in Pound Juju.
Yep. All right. Bye.
All right, see you. All right. Bye, everybody else. Thanks.